I can't stop wanting you. I have tried everything, and I cannot stop. Do you know how obsessed I've become?
This cannot happen again.
Hazel's voice is low, controlled, crumbling underneath. Joon-hyuk is already dressed, back straight, hands not quite steady. She watches him from across the room, watching him fall apart behind that wall he thinks she can't see through. He turns. The moment their eyes meet, everything he rehearsed dies in his throat. Your father. He stops. Tries again.
Rolland has been my
brother for 30 years. I cannot be this man.
I cannot be this man.
Hazel is quiet. Then, softly, devastatingly.
And yet, here you
her
are.
eyes never leave his. Here you are. His breath catches.
I can't stop wanting you.
It tears out of him like something trapped in a burning building for years.
And I cannot stop.
I have tried everything.
Do you know how obsessed I've
everything,
become?
And I cannot stop. His voice drops to almost nothing. Do you know how obsessed I've become? Something moves through Hazel's eyes. Deep, guilty, real. She looks away. Rolland Obi's name lights up her phone between them. Calling. Neither of them moves to answer it. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The courtroom was Hazel Obi's church. Not the kind with hymns and Sunday morning mercy. The kind where truth got decided, where the wrong word at the wrong moment could dismantle a man's entire life or save it. And Hazel had never once walked out of one having lost. She stood at the podium and the room went quiet, the way rooms always went quiet when she was about to speak. Not because she demanded it, because she earned it every single time. Your Honor, her voice was calm, precise. 3 weeks. The prosecution has had 3 weeks to produce a single transaction record that does not carry my client's legitimate business signature. She paused. They cannot, because it does not exist. The jury watched her the way people watch something they cannot look away from. She was mid-sentence when the courtroom doors opened behind her. She did not turn around. She finished her argument, thanked the judge, returned to her seat, and then her co-counsel slid a note across the table. Opposing counsel just switched. New attorney just walked in. She turned. The man crossing the courtroom floor moved like someone who had never once questioned whether he belonged in a room. Every room. Any room. He set his briefcase down at the opposing table without looking at her. And then he looked at her. Dark eyes. Completely unreadable. He held her gaze for 2 seconds, not long enough to be a challenge, exactly long enough to be something else entirely. Hazel looked away first. She typed to her co-counsel without looking up. Who is he? Shin Jae-won. Personal attorney to Baek Joon-hyuk. Baek Joon-hyuk. Korean billionaire. Global investment empire. A name that appeared in financial circles the way weather appeared, everywhere and impossible to ignore. Seonghwa Capital belonged to him. The firm she had spent 8 months building a case against belonged to Baek Joon-hyuk. She called her father from the corridor at recess. Dad controlled. Tell me everything you know about Seonghwa Capital. 3 seconds of silence. Hazel? His voice was different, careful, like a man navigating something dangerous in complete darkness. Drop the case. Dad, I am in the middle of the biggest. That firm belongs to Joon-hyuk. The name landed like a full stop. And if you go after it, you will not just lose the case. You will lose everything I have spent 30 years building. A breath. Do you understand me, Hazel? Everything. She stood in that corridor long after the call ended. Hazel Obi had never dropped a case in her life. She dropped the case. She was still furious 4 days later when her father called again. "Before you say anything," Rolland started. "I dropped it. Flat. Final. It's done." "I know." A pause. "Hazel, he's coming to Atlanta. I'm having dinner Friday. I need you there." "Dad." "Hazel, I am not sitting across a dinner table from the man whose firm just ended my case." "You are." No argument in it. Just certainty. And underneath the certainty, something that sounded almost like pleas. "He is the best man I know. He has been the best man I know for 30 years. And I need my daughter at that table." She showed up on Friday. She told herself it was for her father. She wore a deep wine dress that moved when she walked, and heels that announced her before she entered a room. Rolland met her at the door and pulled her into a hug that lasted a breath longer than usual. "He's in the living room," Rolland said quietly. "I'm not nervous," Hazel said immediately. Her father smiled in a way that suggested he had not implied she was. She walked into the living room. Baek Joon-hyuk stood at the window with a glass of whiskey he had not touched, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. White shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearm. The kind of man whose presence rearranged the air in a room without trying. He turned. Their eyes met, and every careful wall Hazel had spent 4 days constructing cracked, not collapsed, cracked, just enough to let something dangerous through. He crossed the room, extended his hand. "Hazel." Her name in his mouth like he had been saying it for years. "Your father talks about you like you were the only thing in his life he got completely right." She took his hand, held his gaze, let nothing move on her face. "He talks about you too," she said, and left it exactly there. Dinner was both easier and harder than she had prepared herself for. Easier because Joon-hyuk was nothing like what she had built in her mind. He was warm with her father in a way that was completely unperformed. The deep, effortless warmth of two people who had chosen each other over and over again for 3 decades. He remembered things, small things. A restaurant Rolland had mentioned once 2 years ago. A story about Hazel's first court win that her father had shared and carried with him. Harder, because none of that made anything simpler. It made everything worse. When Rolland stood to make a toast, his eyes were full before he even opened his mouth. "There is no man on this earth," he said, voice steady but only just, "that I trust with everything I love more than this man." Hazel's glass was halfway to her lips. Across the table, Joon-hyuk's eyes found hers at exactly that moment. Neither of them looked away fast enough. And in the space between one heartbeat and the next, something moved across Joon-hyuk's face, so brief she almost missed it, so unguarded it stopped her breath completely. Like a man who had spent years being certain of himself, suddenly looking at something that made him uncertain of everything. It was gone in a second, replaced immediately by that composed, devastating stillness. But she had seen it. And he knew she had seen it. He looked down at his glass first. Hazel brought hers to her lips and tasted nothing. She found the terrace because she needed air. She found Joon-hyuk already there, because the universe apparently had no intention of making anything easy for her tonight. He was leaning against the railing, Atlanta glittering below him. And he did not pretend to be surprised she was there. "You're still angry about the case?" Not a question. "I'm always professional," she said. "That's not what I said." She moved to the railing. Not close. Not far. You could have reached out, she said, before it reached court, before I had to withdraw in front of a jury. Would you have dropped it then? She considered the lie. Let it go. No. Something shifted at the corner of his mouth. Then it wouldn't have helped. He turned to face her fully. I didn't know you were on the case until it was already in motion. If I had known earlier, I would have handled it differently. How? I would have called your father, asked him to talk to you. That's exactly what he did. I know. His voice dropped. I'm sorry it cost you something. She looked at him, searching for the performance in it, finding none. And then he shifted, just slightly, turning toward her to say something else, and his arm brushed hers at the railing. It was nothing. A fraction of a second of contact in the dark. The kind of thing that meant absolutely nothing, except that Hazel's entire body registered it like a current. Something that started at her arm and moved through her before she could stop it or name it or build a wall around it fast enough. She did not move away. She did not move closer. She stood completely still and looked out at Atlanta and said nothing and felt everything, and hated every single second of it. Joon-hyuk did not finish whatever he had been about to say. The silence between them was the loudest thing on that terrace. Good night, Hazel. Quiet, deliberate. He walked back inside. She stood at that railing for a long time after he was gone. Atlanta glittering below her, her arms still warm where his had been. Something cracked open in her chest that had absolutely no business being there. The file arrived on a Tuesday with no sender and no explanation. She read it once, twice, a third time. The case she had dropped was not what it had appeared to be. The money laundering charges against her client were real, but her client had not built them. Someone had constructed the entire scheme deliberately, had used Joon-hyuk's firm as a front with surgical precision, had framed a completely innocent man. And the fingerprints, the specific structure of the shell accounts, the routing of the transactions, did not point to anyone inside Joon-hyuk's organization. They pointed inside Rolland's. Someone in her father's inner circle had built this from the ground up, had been manipulating both Rolland and Joon-hyuk for years. And an innocent man was 48 hours from a verdict that would destroy his life. Hazel sat in her car outside her father's house with the file in her lap and the engine off in the stillness of a woman whose mind was moving faster than everything around her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Her hands were not steady. She noticed it. The moment she answered, "Omo sao," the way her fingers gripped the phone slightly too hard, and she hated it. Hazel Obi did not have unsteady hands, not in courtrooms, not in boardrooms, not anywhere. I need to see you. His voice was low, controlled, carrying something underneath the control that made her sit completely still in her car. Tonight. Alone. She looked at the file in her lap. Where? She said. He was already there when she arrived. The rooftop bar was quiet. Midweek. Midtown Atlanta. The kind of place where serious conversations happened because the city noise below made them private. Joon-hyuk was at a corner table with his back to the wall and a clear line of sight to every entrance. She noticed that immediately, the way he had positioned himself, the way powerful men who understood danger always positioned themselves. He stood when she walked in. Not a performance, not a gesture, just a man standing because she had walked into the room. And for one unguarded second, one single second before he composed himself, she came for Ning Sirkin Mom. The way his eyes moved over her face like she was something he had already decided he could not have and was still looking at anyway. She filed it away and sat down. "You already know about the file," she said. Not a question. "I've known about the setup for weeks." He sat across from her. "That's why I came back." She went still. "Not for my father. For your father." His eyes held hers. "Because someone is getting closer to destroying everything he has built, and I have been trying to stop it without him ever finding out." A pause. "He cannot know how close it is. It would break him." Hazel looked at him for a long moment, recalibrating everything she thought she understood about why Baek Joon-hyuk had walked back into their lives. "Who is it?" she said. Joon-hyuk's jaw tightened, just slightly. The way a man's jaw tightens when he is about to say something that costs him something to say. Dre Halston. The name hit her like a physical thing. She heard it, processed it, and then sat with it in complete silence for 5 full seconds, because 5 seconds was what it took for her brain to reconcile the name with what he was telling her. Dre Halston, who had been her father's most trusted business partner for 15 years, who had sat at their Thanksgiving table, who had called her little sister at her law school graduation, with his eyes full and his hand on her father's shoulder, who Rolland had introduced to every room he ever walked into as the man I built this with. "No." Her voice came out quieter than she intended. "Hazel. He has been my father's partner for 15 years. Her voice was steady now. The courtroom steadiness, the kind that came not from calm, but from discipline. He was at my graduation. He called me..." She stopped, swallowed. "He called me little sister." "I know." Joon-hyuk's voice was careful, not soft, careful. The way you speak to someone who is holding something that could shatter. "He has been systematically dismantling your father's empire from the inside the entire time. Every major financial decision your father made in the last 15 years, Dre shaped it. Every deal that didn't close the way it should have, Dre touched it." He leaned forward slightly. "And he knows that the moment I find out it was him, he is finished, which means his next move is to destroy me before I can get there." Hazel sat back. The city glittered below them, and she looked at it for a moment. Atlanta spread out beneath them like it had no idea what was happening on this rooftop. And she thought about her father laughing at something Dre said at dinner 3 weeks ago. Laughing the way Rolland Obi laughed when he was completely at ease. Completely safe. She looked back at Joon-hyuk. "Give me the file." His voice was quiet, certain. "Let me handle this." "Handle it how?" "My way. Your way." She held his gaze. "You mean quietly. You mean without a courtroom. You mean the kind of handling that doesn't leave a paper trail. The kind of handling that protects your father without destroying everything he spent 30 years building in the process. Or the kind of handling," she said carefully, "that protects Baek Joon-hyuk's interests without involving the law." Something moved in his eyes. Not anger. Something more complicated than anger. "You don't trust me." "I trust evidence." She leaned forward. "I am a lawyer. I do not bury files. I do not let powerful men handle things quietly. I do not look away from an innocent man's verdict because it is inconvenient." Her voice did not rise. It never rose. It just got more precise. "I will not start now, not even for my father. If you take this to court, I will win. Dre has 15 years of your father's financial history in his hands. If this goes to trial, he will use every piece of it. Things that have nothing to do with the case. Things that could damage your father's reputation permanently, even if Rolland walks away clean legally. His voice was controlled, but underneath it, something urgent was pressing through. I am not trying to protect myself, Hazel. I am trying to protect him. And I, she said, am trying to protect his legacy, because his legacy is all he has left if this goes wrong. She stood, picked up her bag. Your way would protect my father. My way would protect everything he built. And I will not apologize for choosing that. She was 3 steps from the elevator when her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Her father. Something in her chest moved before she even answered. Some instinct. Some knowledge she could not name. Dad. Miss Obi. A voice she did not recognize. Professional. Careful. Your father has been in an accident. He's at Grady Memorial. You need to come now. The rooftop tilted. She felt Joon-hyuk behind her before she heard him, like the air changed when he moved. What happened? His voice was in her ear, low, already knowing from her face that something was wrong. She could not answer him. She was already moving. She drove too fast and did not remember parking. The waiting room was white and loud, and she moved through it like a woman who had somewhere to be. And God help anyone who got in her way. A nurse pointed her down a corridor, and she followed it and pushed through a door, and there was her father, alive, hooked to monitors, smaller than she had ever seen him look in her entire life. She sat next to his bed and took his hand and did not cry. She would not cry. Not here. Not yet. She heard the waiting room door open behind her 20 minutes later. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. Joon-hyuk walked into that room, and the moment he saw Rolland, something happened to his face that Hazel had never seen on a man that powerful. Not grief exactly. Something older than grief. Something that had been living in him for 30 years and had no name. He crossed the room slowly, stood at the other side of the bed, looked at Rolland for a long moment, and then he sat down, took Roland's other hand in both of his, and said nothing. Hazel watched him, watched this man who moved through the world like nothing could touch him, sit next to her father's hospital bed like a man who would set the entire world on fire before he let anything else happen to the person lying in it. The tenderness of it was devastating. The realness of it was devastating. And something shifted inside Hazel in that moment, something she could not name and could not undo and absolutely could not afford. Roland's eyes opened 40 minutes later. He looked at Joon-hyuk first, then at Hazel. And with everything he had, with all of it, he said, I need you both to promise me something. His voice was thin, but his eyes were completely clear, completely present. Whatever happens, he looked between them. You protect each other. Neither of them spoke. The monitors beeped. Roland's eyes closed again. Joon-hyuk found her in the corridor 20 minutes after the sedative took hold. She was standing at the window with her arms crossed and her jaw tight and her mind moving through everything at a speed that left no room for anything else. There's something I haven't told you. He stopped beside her, close enough that she was aware of him the way she had been aware of him on the terrace. That specific awareness she could not shut off no matter how many walls she built. Something I haven't told anyone. She looked at him. Dre came to me first. His voice was even. 15 years ago, before he ever met your father, he approached me with a partnership offer. Something that would have made us both untouchable. A pause. I said no. Hazel went still. 2 weeks later, he found Rolland. Joon-hyuk's jaw was tight. He didn't stumble into your father's life. He chose him deliberately as a second option. Because Rolland had everything Dre needed and none of the instincts that made me say no. His eyes met hers. Your father has been the target from the very beginning. Every single day of that 15-year friendship was a calculation. The corridor was quiet around them. Hazel processed it. All of it. The full architecture of what Dre had built. The patience of it. The predatory precision of it. Her father laughing at Thanksgiving. Her father introducing Dre to every room he ever walked into. He chose my father, she said slowly. Because my father trusted people? Because your father was good. Joon-hyuk said it simply, like a fact of nature. And good people are the easiest targets for men like Dror because they cannot conceive of that kind of patience, that kind of calculation. Hazel made her decision in that moment clean, complete. I am not giving you the file. She turned to face him fully. I am taking Dre Halston apart in a courtroom, legally, completely, with every piece of evidence laid out so clearly that he has nowhere to go and nothing to hide behind. Her voice was iron. Your way would protect my father. My way would protect his legacy. And his legacy is all he has left. Joon-hyuk looked at her for a long moment. Your father told me, he said quietly, that the day you passed the bar, he cried for an hour. Something moved through his eyes. He called me and said, June, she is going to change the world. A pause. I think he was right. The corridor held them both in silence. Two people who should not want each other, standing in the wreckage of the worst night either of them had had in years, feeling everything they were not supposed to feel, and unable, completely unable, to do anything about it. Hazel picked up her bag. I'll be in touch about the case, she said. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button. The doors opened and she stepped in and turned around and the doors began to close. They opened again. Joon-hyuk stepped in. The doors closed behind him. I am not letting you do this alone. Quiet. Immovable. Final. The elevator began to move. If you're still watching up to now, type I'm still here in the comments section. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. They stepped out into the hospital lobby, and neither of them spoke. The air between them had completely changed. Something had shifted in that elevator that neither of them was going to acknowledge, and both of them were going to feel for a very long time. He was not asking permission anymore. He was simply there, walking beside her through the lobby and out into the Atlanta night, like it was already decided. The most terrifying thing was that she did not tell him to leave. Her law office at 2 a.m. looked like a war room. Files across every surface, laptops open, coffee going cold. Hazel had pulled everything, every document from the anonymous file, every transaction record, every shell company filing, and spread it across the conference table like a map of a battlefield she was only just beginning to understand the size of. Joon-hyuk worked across from her without being asked, without explaining himself. He pulled records she had not yet reached and cross-referenced figures she was still building toward and said nothing unnecessary. Just worked. The kind of focused silence that only came from someone who understood exactly what they were looking for. At some point, she stopped being surprised that he was there. Dre didn't just steal, she said without looking up. He transferred. Look at this. She slid a document across the table. These are not withdrawals. These are systematic asset transfers into shell companies. He has been moving Rolland's most valuable holdings, piece by piece, for 15 years. She looked up. My father's empire is not being stolen from. It is being dismantled, brick by brick, and rebuilt somewhere Rolland will never find it. Joon-hyuk studied the document. His jaw tightened. How many shells? 14 that I can trace. She pulled another file. And at least 3 more that I can see the shadow of, but cannot pin yet. She sat back. Whoever structured this knew exactly what they were doing. This is not amateur work. This required someone with serious financial architecture knowledge. Dre doesn't have that knowledge. Joon-hyuk's voice was careful. He is calculated. He is patient. But this level of financial construction, he stopped. Hazel looked at him. He was already reaching for a different set of documents, moving through them with a speed and certainty that told her he already had a suspicion he was trying to confirm. She watched his hands slow, watched him go completely still. Joon-hyuk. He did not answer immediately. He turned the document to face her and pointed to a name attached to a silent partnership buried 6 layers deep inside the shell structure. Hazel read it. Read it again. Who is this? His name is Sung-il. His voice was completely flat, the flatness of a man holding something in with everything he has. He has been my most trusted lieutenant for 12 years. The office was very quiet. Which means, Hazel said slowly, that every move you have made to protect my father was reported back to Dre in real time. He stood, turned away from the table. His hands were at his sides and completely still, and she understood now that completely still was what Baek Joon-hyuk looked like when he was at the edge of something. We have never been ahead of him, not once. Every strategy, every protection, every move I made thinking I was keeping Rolland safe. He stopped. Dre knew about it before I finished making it. Hazel stood. She walked around the table. She did not think about what she was doing. She sat beside him and reached across and put her hand over his where it rested on the table. Just for a moment. Just long enough for them both to feel it. Neither of them pulled away. The city hummed below them, and the office was silent, and for 30 seconds neither of them moved or spoke, and the weight of everything they were not saying filled the room completely. His hand turned under hers, just slightly, just enough. Her phone rang. She pulled her hand back, looked at the screen. Her father. She answered immediately. Dad, you're supposed to be... Come to the house. Rolland's voice was different from the hospital. Not afraid, not weak, resolute. The voice of a man who had made a decision. Both of you. Now. He was sitting in his study when they arrived, not in bed, not resting. Sitting behind his desk in his chair like a man who had been waiting for this exact moment and was done waiting. The moment they walked in together, something crossed Rolland's face. So brief it was. Almost. Nothing. Something between recognition and pain. There and gone before either of them could name it, and then it was replaced by the same composure he always carried, and he said nothing about it. Sit down, he said. They sat. Rolland looked at his desk for a moment, and then he reached into the drawer and slid a folder across the surface toward them. Hazel opened it. Her breath stopped. 6 months of evidence, systematic, meticulous. Bank records, transfer documents, communication logs, shell company registrations. Everything they had spent the night trying to piece together, her father had already assembled. Completely, perfectly. You knew. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Dad, you already knew. For 6 months, his voice was steady. I found the first transfer record by accident, and then I started looking. And then I could not stop looking because every time I looked, there was more. He folded his hands on the desk. I said nothing because I was building this, because I needed it to be airtight before it went anywhere. He looked at Joon-hyuk. And I did not tell you because I knew what you would do. Joon-hyuk met his eyes. Rolland, you would have handled it. Not an accusation, a fact. Your way. And I was not going to let you destroy your life over me. Not for this. Not for him. His voice dropped. He is not worth what it would have cost you. Joon-hyuk said nothing. Hazel watched her father. This man who had been carrying a 6-month betrayal completely alone, while protecting everyone around him, and felt something so large move through her chest that she could not find a name for it. This was who Rolland Obi was. This had always been who he was, and she had spent her entire life taking for granted the size of him. I always knew it would be you who finished this. He looked at Hazel with 32 years of love and certainty in his eyes. I raised a lawyer for a reason. They worked through what remained of the night. All 3 of them. Father and daughter. And the man who loved them both in completely different ways. Sitting around Rolland's desk, dismantling 15 years of Dre Halston's carefully constructed destruction piece by piece. Rolland guided. Hazel built the legal architecture. Joon-hyuk filled the gaps that required knowledge of the shadow world Dre had been operating in. It should have felt like progress. It did feel like progress. But every time Hazel reached across the desk and Joon-hyuk's hand was close to hers, she pulled back slightly. Every time Joon-hyuk said something that made her look up at him, she looked away before the look became something her father could read. And every time Rolland spoke to Joon-hyuk with 30 years of complete, unguarded trust in his voice, the weight of what was sitting in that room became almost unbearable. She could not look at Joon-hyuk directly while her father was in the room. She could feel that he could not look at her either. Hazel's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost let it go. But something made her answer. Ms. Obi. The voice was smooth, unhurried, completely familiar in a way that turned her blood cold before her brain even caught up. I hope the 3 of you are enjoying your evening. She went very still. Tell your father I said hello. A pause. And while you have a moment, ask Joon-hyuk what really happened to your mother. The line went dead. The study was completely silent. Hazel lowered the phone slowly. She looked at Joon-hyuk. He had gone absolutely still the moment he saw her face change. And now that she was looking at him directly, she saw it. The thing she had not expected. Not calculation. Not composure. Something behind his eyes that looked exactly like a man who had been dreading this moment for a very long time. He knew. He already knew what Dre had just said. He knew what it meant. And he had been carrying it. She turned to her father. Rolland had stood up from his chair. His face had gone gray. Not the gray of shock, but the gray of a man watching something he buried a long time ago finally breaking through the surface. He knew too. They both knew. The room held all 3 of them in a silence so complete it had weight. Hazel looked between them. The two men who meant everything to her. Both of them carrying the same secret. Both of them looking at her with the same thing in their eyes. Not guilt exactly. Something older than guilt. Something that had been waiting in this room for years. "Somebody in this room," she said, and her voice was the quietest and most dangerous it had ever been, "is going to tell me the truth right now." Neither of them moved. "Or I walk out of that door." She looked between them one final time. "And I do not come back." The silence in Rolland's study was suffocating. Hazel had not moved. Her ultimatum was still in the air between them, live, dangerous, waiting. And she meant every word of it. Both men knew she meant every word of it. And then Rolland did something neither Hazel nor the audience expected. He sat back down, slowly, like a man whose bones had been carrying something for 25 years and had finally decided they were done. He folded his hands on the desk, looked at his daughter, and when he spoke, his voice was the quietest it had ever been in her entire life. "Your mother did not leave us, Hazel." A breath. "She was taken." The room shifted, not dramatically, not with noise, just shifted, like the floor had moved 3 inches to the left, and everything that had been standing on it was now standing somewhere slightly different. Hazel did not speak. She could not speak. She had spent 25 years with a wound she had never once let anyone see. The mother who left. The woman who chose to walk away from a 7-year-old girl and never look back. That wound was the reason Hazel built walls. The reason she needed to be the strongest person in every room. The reason she had spent her entire adult life making sure she never needed anyone badly enough that their leaving could break her. And it was never true. "Dad," her voice came out barely there. "Let me finish." He said it gently. "I have been waiting 25 years to finish this." He looked at his hands. "Your mother found something. She was always the bravest person I ever knew. Braver than me. Braver than anyone I have ever met since. She discovered that a criminal network was using legitimate Nigerian-American businesses as fronts, laundering money through companies like ours. She started gathering evidence." His jaw tightened. "And when they found out what she was doing, they took her, and they made it look like she left. So I would spend my life thinking she chose to go. So I would never look for her." The silence that followed was the heaviest thing Hazel had ever sat inside. "You spent 30 years thinking she left you." Hazel's voice cracked on the last word. "Yes. And you never told me." "I was protecting you." His eyes met hers. "The same way I have been protecting you your entire life. The same way she was protecting us both when she started gathering that evidence." He looked down. "We are a family of people who love so hard we carry everything alone." Hazel's eyes burned. She turned to Joon-hyuk, because Rolland's eyes had gone to him when he said it. Just for a fraction of a second. Just long enough. "What do you know about this?" Not a question. Not a request. A verdict. Joon-hyuk turned from the window, and what moved across his face in that moment was the most honest thing she had ever seen on him. Not calculation, not composure. The look of a man who had been carrying something he should have put down a long time ago, and had run out of strength to hold it. 12 years ago, he said, when I was building my empire. I did business with a network I did not fully understand. When I discovered what they were, he stopped It took me 3 years to dismantle my connection to them. 3 years of carefully removing myself without them knowing I was doing it. And the man who gave me the information I needed to do that safely, his eyes moved to Rolland, was your father. Hazel stared at him. Rolland came to me, Joon-hyuk said quietly, 12 years ago. He knew I had been inside the network and gotten out. He needed what I knew. A pause. And I needed what he could give me. Protection. Legitimacy. Someone who understood the world I was trying to leave behind. She looked at her father. You found him deliberately. The pieces assembling themselves in her mind with a speed and clarity that was almost painful. You didn't just meet Joon-hyuk, you found him because he had been inside and gotten out, because he knew things about that network that nobody else knew, because you needed him to find Mum. Rolland met her eyes. Yes. Their 30-year brotherhood, Hazel said slowly. To no one. To both of them. To the room itself. Started as a mission. It started as a mission. Rolland's voice was steady. And it became the realest thing in my life. What I have with Joon-hyuk is not performance. It is not strategy. It is 30 years of choosing each other in every circumstance that mattered. He looked at Joon-hyuk with something so unguarded it was almost painful to witness. He knows who I am better than anyone alive. That did not happen by accident. But it is real. All of it. Hazel stood completely still. Her entire understanding of her father, of Joon-hyuk, of the 30-year brotherhood she had grown up watching and admiring and feeling guilty for betraying, all of it rewritten in 2 minutes. And yet, somehow, all of it still real, still true, still the most genuine thing she had ever seen between two people. Her phone lit up. She looked at the screen. Her law firm. This late at night could only mean one thing. She answered before the first ring finished. Dre Halston filed an emergency injunction 20 minutes ago. Her junior partner's voice was tight. He is moving to freeze all of Rolland Obi's assets, effective midnight. We have less than 3 hours. Hazel was already moving. Pull the team. Iron. Clean. Absolute. All of them. I don't care what time it is. I want everyone on a call in 15 minutes. She was reaching for her bag. Her files. Her mind already 3 steps ahead of everything her heart had just been handed. And start drafting the counter filing. I'll have the evidence package to you in an hour. She ended the call. Looked up. Joon-hyuk was watching her from across the room, and the look on his face. The look on his face was something she had never seen directed at her before. Like a man watching something that left him completely undone. This woman, whose entire world had just been rewritten in this study, was already, without pausing, without breaking, without asking for a single moment to process any of it, going to war for her father's legacy. I need Rolland's evidence folder, she said, and I need everything you have on Sung-il's connection to the shell companies right now. Both men moved. Joon-hyuk's phone rang 40 minutes into the filing. He stepped away from the desk, listened, said 3 words, ended the call. Sung-il is gone. He turned back to them. He disappeared 6 hours ago. A pause. But before he left something behind. Something shifted in his expression. A full confession. Every communication between himself and Drar, every instruction, every payment, every move. His jaw tightened. He didn't run because he was guilty. He ran because Dre threatened his family. The confession is his way of making it right. Hazel looked at him for 1 second. Then she turned back to her laptop. Send it to me. Sung-il's confession. Rolland's 6 months of evidence. Hazel's legal architecture. 3 things that individually were powerful. Together, they were devastating. She filed 40 minutes before midnight. The injunction was blocked at 11:58. And by 4 a.m, Dre Halston's assets were frozen, his network exposed, and 15 years of carefully constructed destruction dismantled in a single night. Hazel sat back in her chair. Rolland reached across the desk and put his hand over hers. Neither of them said anything. Joon-hyuk was at the window again, looking out at Atlanta going quiet in the early morning hours, and Hazel looked at the back of him and thought about her mother living somewhere in the world for 25 years. Alive. Alone. Having given up everything so her family could stay safe. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Her own name in the headline. And Joon-hyuk's. And a story that had nothing to do with law or justice or Dre Halston. She read it once. Set the phone face down on the desk. Dre went to the press. Her voice was completely even. He is saying Joon-hyuk and I are in a relationship. He is trying to use it to discredit the case. The study went quiet. Rolland picked up her phone, read the headline. Set it down. He did not look at Hazel. He looked at Joon-hyuk, and then he picked up his own phone. Made a call that lasted 4 seconds. Come to the house. He ended the call, set the phone down, and walked out of his own study without another word. Hazel arrived at her father's house first. She sat in her car for 60 seconds, not preparing, not strategizing, just sitting. And then she got out because she was Rolland Obi's daughter. And Rolland Obi's daughter did not sit in cars when there was something that needed to be said. He was in the living room, standing at the window, the same window Joon-hyuk had stood at the night of the dinner, looking out at Atlanta, like it owed him something. She stood in the doorway. Dad. He turned, and she told him everything, not as a lawyer, not as a woman with prepared arguments and structured defenses, as his daughter, the little girl who had watched him love this world with everything he had for 32 years. She told him about the feeling she had not asked for and could not explain, the guilt that had lived in her chest from the moment she understood what it was, the impossibility of it, the fact that she had tried, genuinely tried, to make it stop, and the fact that she could not, and the fact that she did not know what that made her, but she was not going to lie to him. Not about this. Not ever about this. Rolland listened to every word without moving. When she finished, the room was very quiet. He looked at his daughter for a long time. I know who Joon-hyuk is, he said finally. Better than anyone alive. His voice was measured, careful, like a man choosing every word with the full understanding of what it would cost. I watched that man fight himself for 3 years. I saw it happening before either of you did. A pause. And what breaks me, Hazel, is not what he feels. It is that he did not trust me enough to come to me. His voice dropped. I would have told him. There is no version of my life where I choose my pride over the people I love. He looked away. But I need time. And I need him to earn what he broke. From me. Not from you. Hazel exhaled. It was not forgiveness. It was not a door slamming. It was a door left open by a man who loved too deeply to close it completely, and it was the most her father thing she had ever heard him say. The front door opened. Joon-hyuk stepped into the room. He looked at Rolland. Rolland looked at him. And the air between them, 30 years of brotherhood, 30 years of mission and grief and genuine love, and one enormous unspoken thing was so thick with everything that neither of them could find the beginning of a sentence. Joon-hyuk spoke first. "You are the only real family I have ever had." His voice was quiet, completely undefended. "I am sorry I did not come to you first. I'm sorry I let it go as far as it did without trusting you with it. A breath. Everything else I will spend the rest of my life making right, but losing you is the one thing I cannot survive." Rolland looked at him for a long time. Then he walked to his desk, picked up the photograph that had sat there for 30 years. Adai's, young and laughing and completely alive. And he crossed the room and placed it in Joon-hyuk's hands. "Then find her." His voice did not shake. "Bring my wife home." He held Joon-hyuk's gaze. "We will talk about everything else after." Dre Halston was arrested the following morning. The trial lasted 11 days. Hazel led the prosecution with a precision and fire that made the courtroom hold its breath from opening arguments to closing statement. Every charge, every count, the jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty. Across the board. Dre Halston would not see the outside of a prison for the rest of his life. Hazel sat in her chair when the verdict landed, did not stand, did not celebrate, just closed her files one by one with the quiet certainty of a woman who had finished exactly what she came to do. And then she sat in the silence of the emptying courtroom and thought about her mother, thought about a woman brave enough to gather evidence against a criminal network alone, brave enough to disappear so her family could live. She thought, "I got it from her. If you have stayed with Hazel and Joon-hyuk and Rolland through everything, through every secret and every sacrifice and every moment of love that cost someone something, then you already know this story is not finished. There is a woman in this world who has been waiting 25 years for her family to find her, and they are coming. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on every notification, because what happens next will break your heart completely open and put it back together in a way you never expected." Rolland Obi did not spend 30 years fighting for nothing, and neither did she. Part 2 is coming. Do not be the person who misses it. 3 weeks after the trial, Joon-hyuk came to Hazel's office. He set a single document on her desk. She read it. A location. London. A woman living under a protected identity for 25 years. 3 independent sources confirming the same address. The evidence was undeniable. She looked up at him. "I took it to your father first." His voice was quiet. "Because that is who I owe it to." "What did he say?" Joon-hyuk held her gaze. "He said, 'Take my daughter and bring her mother home.'" The plane lifted out of Atlanta just after midnight. They sat side by side in the dark cabin, and the city fell away beneath them, and neither of them spoke for a long time. The mission Rolland had given them sitting between them like the first completely honest thing their relationship had ever been built on. No secrets underneath it, no guilt on top of it. Just this. Just the two of them going to find a woman who had been waiting 25 years to be found. Somewhere over the Atlantic. Hazel turned to look at him. "If she is really there." Her voice was quiet. "If we actually find her, nothing will ever be the same again." Joon-hyuk looked at her. "I know." He reached across, took her hand. "And this time, neither of them pulled away. She looked down at their hands, looked back out at the dark sky. Her phone lit up. Unknown number. London area code. She answered. A breath. And then a voice, A voice she'd not heard in 25 years. A voice she had spent 25 years convincing herself she had forgotten and had never forgotten at all. Hazel. One word. The line went dead. She sat completely still at 30,000 feet with her mother's voice in her ear and Joon-hyuk's hand in hers and the dark Atlantic spreading out beneath them and everything about to change. If this story moved you, please like this video right now. Leave a comment and tell us what you would have done in place of Hazel's father. Would you have handled the betrayal differently? And subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story like this one. Every week, we bring you forbidden romance stories of quiet strength, long strategy, and the kind of wisdom that only reveals itself to those who stay until the end. You stayed. That means something. We'll see you in the next one.